You're watching TVC Breakfast, and it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me via Skype is CEO CKN News, Chris Kende Nwando. Good morning and happy Workers' Day.
Good morning, my sister. Happy Workers' Day to you too.
Thank you very much. All right, let's head straight to the papers now. And I begin with the blueprint. Workers to federal government amidst COVID-19 trauma. Protect Nigerians from uncharitable employers. Seek tax rebates, free electricity for SMEs. Want prices of goods, drugs reduced? Equip yourselves with new skills. APC tasks workers. Textile workers urge industry revival. We won't tolerate salary cuts. Civil servants, they'll fire me. And we move to the Daily Trust now. Fear of COVID-19 transmission as governors repatriate Almajiri across states. 16 pupils infected in Kaduna. Is thoughtless to move people during pandemic. We move to the Leadership newspaper now. May Day, merger scrapping of MDAs won't affect jobs, federal government. And to the Daily Times now. May Day, no job losses arising from COVID-19, federal government. To the news direct. Tension in Kano, northern states over Almajiri's spread of COVID-19. Bauchi will test Almajiri before evacuation. Mohammed, federal government laments bed spaces, considers home treatment. Residents in Osun allay fear over influx of Zamfara indigents. And to the New Telegraph now. Federal government, 113 health workers in isolation centers for COVID-19. NAD Defense insists 385 doctors have been exposed to the virus. But Chris, let's quickly look at the May Day, the International Workers' Day. The story on the front page of the blueprint talking about workers are agitating, first of all. But then when you look at everything going on across the world, countries having people file for unemployment claims, is there anything to celebrate on a day like this?
Thank you once again. Yes, there is need for us to celebrate, even if we COVID-19 and all that's happening. The most important thing is that we still have life. That in itself is worth celebrating. So any worker that is alive today needs to celebrate, despite the fact that there's hunger everywhere and there's a high level of uncertainty as the pandemic continues to rise. It is only hope that after this pandemic, that jobs will not be lost, but that is...
and that is where my next question comes from. How can the government protect the interest of workers, seeing the damage the COVID-19 has had on businesses, the economies of countries and even businesses?
Yes, it's a very tough one because the government in this financially is bleeding seriously. Mm-hmm. If you look at what we are, our foreign exchange earning, for now, we are not earning much because of the price of oil. Also, that in itself will definitely affect federal government boss, even with the states. Then the private sector also, the lockdown has really has been very, very hard on everybody. But it is hoped that the government will look at a way of helping out both the SMEs, which are the largest employers of labor in Nigeria presently, and also other organizations that may need some level of financial assistance. That is the only way to go, because for now, some companies are already not paying salaries. Mm-hmm. Some that we are paying are already paying about half salaries. Some are already downsizing. And already, even before the end of the pandemic, so there's going to be a very, very tough call for everyone.
Now, let's look at the demands by workers to the federal government now. They're talking about seeking tax rebates, free electricity for SMEs, the one price of goods, drugs reduced. Are you confident that all of these demands, if they are legitimate enough, would be met by the government?
Well, it's not out of place. In some other countries, the you see that the government are already doing some palliatives for their citizens in the United States of America, for instance. And the United States government is giving about $1,250 to every American and about $500 to every underage American. So some other countries, same is happening in the United Kingdom. But those are world economies with very strong economies. As I said, ours here, we have serious challenges. But don't forget that the government some time ago said that they're looking at the possibility of giving Nigerians free electricity for 2 months. We're almost going to 2 months into the lockdown, and nothing seems to come in out of that. So for the SME, as I said, which is the largest employer of labor in Nigeria, if there could be some level of tax relief, yes, I agree, it would go a long way. But my own point is that how do we be able to sustain workers having their job once after this pandemic? Is going to be a very, very tough call, and a lot of sacrifices have to be both on the part of the workers and also the employers to be able to make sure that people don't lose so much, both in the banking sector, in the oil and gas, all sphere of Nigeria economy. We are going to have serious challenges, and I think we have to start facing the realities for now.
On the papers this morning, we see the government is beginning to revisit the Steve Orosanye report talking about cutting down on the number of NDAs, even though the government is saying that this is not going to affect jobs. But of what interest is this to you, saying that the government is revisiting that report that a lot of Nigerians had called on the government to revisit all the while?
Yes, I am one of those that believe that we have so many MDAs. In Nigeria. If you go to the federal ministries, if you see a particular ministry and see the number of MDAs under that ministry, you just be asking yourself, what are all these MDAs? I believe that some of them can be matched for effectiveness, yes. Whether that is going to lead to job cuts, I don't know for now. But I think what we have now is so bogus. We cannot be able to sustain that with the kind of economy we have now. You go to some parastatals that are practically doing nothing. All the jobs wait for, they are not making any level of impact into the economy. All they just wait, workers wait is every month they just collect their salaries and zap. So I believe that report should be looked into, and it's been a long time coming. But for now, we should be able to do that, and I think that's the way to go, and so that we can be able to probe down on some of these areas where we think we are spending so much.
Okay, CKN, we must thank you for speaking with us on the newspaper review. Now it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. Joining me via Skype is Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst Sheson Okwade. Good morning. Happy International Workers' Day.
Veronica, good morning and happy Workers' Day.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now. I begin with the blueprint. Workers to the federal government amidst COVID-19 trauma, protect Nigerians from uncharitable employers, seek tax rebates, free electricity for SMEs, want prices of goods, drugs reduced, equip yourselves with new skills. APC tasks workers, textile workers urge industry revival, we won't tolerate salary cuts, civil servants still fire me. And we move to the Daily Trust. Fear of COVID-19 transmission as governors repatriate Almajiri across states. 16 pupils infected in Kaduna is thoughtless to move people during pandemic. Good decision, wrong timing, experts. Almajiri deserve fair treatment, Bauchi Commissioner. And to the leadership newspaper now, May Day, major scrapping of MDAs won't affect jobs. Federal government mandates SGF, HOS to implement Orosanye's report. We're still studying report. NLC will amend anti-labor laws. Senate. Labor marks Workers' Day without fanfare in 40 years. 2020 May Day, most precarious is RMO. To the Daily Times now, May Day, no job losses arising from COVID-19. Federal government says it won't encourage employers to disengage staff without dialogue. Approves partial resumption of work for senior public servants. To the news direct now. Tension in Kano, northern states over Almajiri's spread of COVID-19. Bauchi will test Almajiri before evacuation. Muhammad, federal government laments bed spaces, considers home treatment. Residents in Oshu allay fear of over-influx of Zamfara indigents. And finally, on the front page of the New Telegraph, federal government 113 health workers in isolation centers for COVID-19. NARD differs, insists 385 doctors have been exposed to virus. Pharmaceutical industry looking to into 145 potential therapies. Release your property for us, minister begs hotel owners. Government offices to open thrice weekly. Sheson, I'd like for us to look at this story on the front page of the New Telegraph. It will also dovetail into other stories on the front page of other papers this morning, talking about 113 health workers having contracted the virus and are now in isolation, although NAD is insisting that about 385 doctors have been exposed to the virus. How concerning is this for you, looking at the number of rising cases and these ones that are the front lines also being affected?
Thank you very much, Veronica. It's really, really alarming that the frontliners are exposed to this stuff as we speak. If you recall, just last week, we were discussing about having just 40 of them. And as of today, it has risen to about 113. It's inevitable because if you look at the pressure we are getting from the positive people responding positively to the coronavirus in the last few days, it's really, 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 really high. It's really, really, really high. And I want a situation where the government, in one way or the other, will look at way to make sure, because it's still going to rise higher, considering the fact that we are opening up gradually and people are not adhering to the necessary precautions. It's only possibly the elites that are adhering to this. You still see people go around because of our upbringing, having handshake, hugging, and doing so many things. You heard in the news of some people that are still organizing birthday party in their in hideouts. People still going to a club, putting a facelift as if it's a pharmaceutical company in Lagos. So it's not about the government are trying their best, but I think it's high time the people know that we need to value our lives, because we are putting so much pressure on the limited resources who are the frontline workers, and people should just please adhere to all the necessary precautions, even as the government eased the lockdown from Monday.
But some would say that we have gotten donations in terms of monies. We have gotten donations in terms of equipment, personal protective equipment, and we also have seen what is going on across other countries. Why are we not taking the necessary measures and steps and lessons? Why are we not using this equipment donated and giving them to the frontliners to use to protect themselves, looking at the population we have at hand and the spread of the virus?
Well, I don't know how true. If you look at the PTF on their daily report, so many of this equipment donated are being shared. But you know, one needs to manage resources too. You don't just give out some of these resources because you are under pressure. You must definitely ascertain that the people you are sharing it to are the people that will actually make use of it. Like you heard from the Minister of Health yesterday, the majority of the people that were reported to have had this issue are from the private sector, who are not duly accredited to do some of this problem. So it's just a matter of the Ministry of Health synchronizing with the private sector, because the pressure is so much on the public facility now, and there is no how we won't need the support of the private sector. So it's a matter of having a common ground of how to put some of this thing in place, avail some of these things to them so that they can have the PPE. And for the private sector, if you don't have the PPE, I don't think it's worth it risking your life, considering the fact that this thing does not show, and people might just come for malaria and they are carrying the infection. So we advise that if you don't have the necessary PPE, please try as much as possible to get it, even if the government is not providing, so that you can save your life for you to be able to attend to the populace.
We see other countries beginning to looking towards to address this issue. Now, look at, you talk about Ghana having tested a lot of persons and are beginning to perhaps make use of technology, especially drones, to test and make deliveries of this test as well. What lessons do we begin to learn from other countries that are close to us? If we say we should not look at the European countries, what lessons can we pick from these other countries looking inward to look at homegrown solutions to address this issue?
It's inevitable. What everybody is doing now is not listening to anybody or learning from anybody. You have to look inward to see what is favorable. I want a situation where the federal government can adopt the mode of possibly using drones. You know, Lagos State has gone in line by expanding the tax collection centers. If we can improve more on this, where people can voluntarily go in, if we can have mobile test facilities too, that can carry out some of these things, so that in as much as we increase the test capacity, we can ascertain the level of people that are positive and the people to actually be taken care of. Also, I want a situation where we are going to improve on the isolation center with the ease that we are going to face from Monday. With a state like Lagos, where ordinarily to even stay at the bus stop, you have to clog yourself. Even though you are going to be using nose masks, you discover that there will still be some people who will feel that this thing does not exist, so I must not just make use of any nose mask of anything. So we want a situation where there will be compliance from the law enforcement agency, putting the human face, to increase in the creation of isolation center to cope whatever and absorb whatever menace that will come from the ease of locking down from Monday.
All right, Sheson Kwade, thank you so much for speaking with us on the newspaper review this morning.